bench opinions. Three idiots with amateur analysis.
If we look back a couple weeks thinking about who would be in the final of the European Champions Cup, we would have all picked Toulouse and Leinster.
Yes.
After this weekend, no longer going to be the case.
I would have thought they would go on Toulouse.
This is why we run a very efficient rugby podcast where you get all your facts.
This is true.
Yeah.
They let's start with Leinster. Leinster lost against
What a game.
a very, very up for it,
Plucky.
alive, plucky
There's it.
Northampton Saints,
Yeah.
who are currently 7th in the Premier League, which, as we discussed last week with some pundits saying that the URC is a weak league, I think the Premiership is currently kind of struggling. So considering the fact that they are 7th in a league that's not doing too well, it's pretty darn impressive that they went to Aviva Stadium to get that win.
But can one make the same argument that we have made for South African teams, and which we've obviously criticized, that they've focused on the URC? Northampton clearly said we're throwing everything at the European Champions Cup, but
Sure, but you still have to have it.
yeah,
You still have to have those players. You still need them to gel at the right moment away.
Less travel though as well for the Premiership side, so the toll it gets taken. I think even on a team as mighty as Leinster appear to be.
Sure, but we're still talking about a weaker, on paper, a weaker franchise playing against Leinster and beating them at home.
Sure.
Leinster are cursed in the European Champions Cup.
3 final losses.
3 finals,
And now,
quarterfinal,
and now a
semi-final.
semi-final.
It's all in there. It's heartbreaking for their fans, not for us.
Where was it last? Because a lot of people are discussing the fact that Geordie Barrett was not selected to start. I don't know if you guys remember the game against Glasgow where they wiped the floor with him. It was like 51-0. And Geordie Barrett was outright the star player in the team. And he got relegated to the bench behind Gary Ringrose and old mate. What's his name?
Old mate.
Henshaw.
It's tough. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I can dissect like fucking, what's his name? Squidge Rugby,
yeah.
the tactics and why Northampton beat Leinster. I just think that, and this is why I wish South African teams would take that competition more serious, because it's such a good example of how good you have to be every week to really progress, and it shows. And it probably heaps even more credit on clubs that have continuously won that competition, your La Rochelles or your Toulouses or whoever's won it like multiple times, because to do that, to beat any team in the European Champions Cup is a great achievement, because everyone is great.
Yeah.
You just have to be at your best every day. And I mean, we saw when Leinster lost against the Bulls, that was the first time that one saw like a chink in their armor. And ever since then, like the chinks it's like when you get a little crack in your windscreen and you don't go to the shatterproof people to fix it. It just gets bigger and bigger.
UFE.
Yeah.
PG Glass.
PG Glass. So I'm going to say some individual brilliance on Northampton's side won it for them.
Who are your standout players from the Northampton Saints?
Pollock.
Pollock?
Sean.
Yeah. No. Henry.
His dad, Graham.
Henry Pollock is a 20-year-old 7 flanker. He runs maybe faster than the wingers do. And we're talking about a team where Tommy Freeman is in the team with him, who, by the way, scored a hat-trick.
He did.
Also, an outstanding
Finn Smith
match.
played very well.
Finn Smith played. Those would be the 3 standout players for me.
And our boy Augustus had a few barnstorming runs as well.
He did. He carried the ball very nicely.
We need someone putting their hand up at 8. So hopefully a lot of talk around him. Hopefully getting into the Springbok side.
Yeah. With Finn Russell having played so well, does that put him back into the
Finn Smith.
Finn. What did I say?
Finn Russell.
No, Finn Smith.
Too many Finns in this fucking...
There's Finn Smith, Finn Russell, Marcus Smith. With Finn Smith having played so well, does that put his name back in the hat in terms of
he wins the
Lions?
If he wins the European Champions Cup, yes.
Okay,
100%.
so you don't think this performance was good enough?
No. Everyone can win a semi-final.
Well, apparently Leinster got.
No.
We joke about Leinster, by the way. They won it 4 times already. The European Champions Cup. They're a phenomenal team. They just didn't win it this time.
They could, I don't know. They also under Jacques Nina, they've been such a well-drilled outfit, but I don't know. Like, how is a South African going to sit here and tell them how to win a European Champions Cup? It's you've got so many Irish,
anything, to be honest.
There's so many Irish
recently.
Yeah,
They've become a bit of a choke at our side.
But the thing is, like, our teams can you remember us in Super Rugby?
Yeah.
How difficult it was for a South African team to actually win the Super Rugby competition.
The only times we had like nailed on was when there were two South African teams in the final.
Yeah, that was the only way we knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But other than that, and that's very similar in a sense that the quality of those competitions is so high that if you don't rock up with your A game for that competition, you're not.
And I do think URC teams are at a bit of a disadvantage with South Africa coming into the fold with all the travel. I think it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think even though teams like Leinster do have bigger squads and do try sort of do very good squad management in the URC, sending certain sides down to South Africa and trying to manage minutes like that, I just think you can't ignore it.
Okay. Yeah.
With there being so many international players in the Leinster side, so Irish internationals, regardless of the other international players, is there a bit of a psychological barrier in terms of big match temperament in these big tournaments, both in World Cups for the Irish team, but also now because it's four losses in a row, right?
Yeah, but if you look at
a knockout stage,
so if we look at their World Cup loss against New Zealand weren't as bad as people were making them out to be before the tournament, and that game, Ireland didn't play a bad game. New Zealand just played fucking amazingly. So you can't really call it a choke job like what the Proteas do in some of the cricket matches that we play. And I would say the same almost for this Leinster versus Northampton game is I didn't see Leinster playing a terrible game. They could have defended a little better. But other than that, it was just sometimes you come up against a team who's just better than you on the day.
Yeah, and if they have, I think rugby is also a sport. If you have key players, particularly in like pivot roles, like a Finn Smith at fly half, if he just has a barnstorming game, it can just make such a difference.
Yeah.
As you know, if all their difference makers or their X factor players have a good game on the same day, they can play you off the park. And I think, and not only that, just because of the way scoring works in rugby as well, and how quickly things can switch, it just can change so quickly. And then all of a sudden, Northampton Saints. I saw the one or two of the runs that Pollock made as well. You know, those things happen in an instant. It turns the game on the head, and then all of a sudden you're Northampton. You're going, okay, we can manage this game, and we can win this game.
And there's momentum on your side.
Exactly. And I think if you and then you can go into doing the basics right and kind of see a game out.
The only reason I'm asking these questions is because before the match started, a lot of journalists were already asking about, or sort of stating controversy in the selection of the team.
Okay.
So it was a question mark before the game even happened, and then during the game, their performance, especially on defense, was a little bit lackluster, which hasn't been the case for both tournaments, both the URC and for the European Champions Cup. So those questions were then sort of double down in their validity, saying like, okay, why haven't we used one of the best players that we've now signed on all the way from New Zealand with all of his experience, with all the
what was the reasoning?
Excuse me?
What was the reasoning
For not picking him?
Yeah.
Cohen, I think is the name of the coach. He said he didn't think that there was much of a quality difference between Ringrose and Barrett.
Okay.
But then they did change him. They brought Barrett on in the 49th minute, and commentators are saying he was essentially the man of the match for Leinster.
Do you think there was an element of underestimating Northampton?
I think so. I think so. And then with the likes of Henry Pollock, the way that he played, and Finn Smith, and then also Augusta and Tommy Freeman, as you say, like psychologically, mentally, those guys got so riled up behind them, and they were like, really passionate. And I think with the underestimation maybe from Leinster side, that they just completely got overrun.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, it was still a close game. It was 34-31, so it's not like it was, like they got wiped out. But
A shock result. For
They
sure,
didn't.
yeah.
There was a shock result, and they didn't take their opportunities. Like they missed a couple. I think they missed one. Prendergast missed one or two kicks. He was having a bit of an off day as well. So you just wonder, it's like that psychological aspect. Does it get too much for them?
Well, listen,
With the monkey off their
if
back,
they
you know?
if they don't end up winning this year's URC, then I think there's psychological problems because they should cruise to that title.
You say that.
No, I'm
but
saying
then you got like Glasgow. You've got
I'm
you've
saying
got Bulls coming.
I'm saying based on the way they've played rugby
right.
this season,
For the
they
rest of the
should
season.
cruise to that title. And if they don't, then it's a psychological issue because they're the best rugby team in that competition by a mile.
Let's talk about Toulouse a little bit.
Yeah.
They're obviously missing their talisman, their main guy, Antoine Dupont.
Never heard of him.
Never heard of him? He's this plucky rugby player. But then if you look at the backline of Bordeaux, you've got Jalibert, you've got Damien Penaud, you've got Louis Bibi, who also scored one or two, I think 2 tries. They've got quite a fire.
It's still a star-studded team, eh?
Fire backline.
Big club though as well. I mean,
Yeah.
although like they're one of the big. I mean, when we were there as well, the amount of I remember seeing a couple of the guys walking around on a Sunday market as well when we were there, and but there's also Bordeaux flags everywhere.
Yeah.
And with them not having a football club anymore, it adds another interesting dynamic because the only big professional sport played there is rugby.
I think Toulouse will probably kick themselves for not going through here because especially with Leinster being out, it's not that it would have been an easy final against Northampton, but you're licking your chops then and just saying, okay, this is a real chance for us to, because I mean, I think it's going to be a good final. I think Bordeaux probably has slight advantage with the talent that they have at their disposal, but now we've seen what Northampton can do, so I'm not going to be the one who's going to say that they're not going to win the thing. I'd back Northampton at this moment because I like them more. I like some of their players more.
Also, it's just the underdog, right?
Yeah, it's the underdog, and yeah, exactly. And you know, I like a story like someone like Pollock coming through and showing that much talent, and he shows a lot of self-belief as well. Eh? He's like on that verge of cocky. So be interesting to see also what he does in a national team jersey, because then I'm not for him anymore.
Well, he played his first test against Wales, scored 2 tries in his debut.
Yeah.
The man's got wheels. I mean, it was against Wales, but yes, he's good.
Yeah.
He's very impressive. So that would then be replacing Curry, right?
Yeah. Tough for him to get, but you're coming at the right time. I think he's so young, you can bleed him.
Talking about
20 years old,
impressive youngsters, did you guys see that story? Now, I don't remember his name, so this is going to be a little bit of a guessing thing.
Yeah.
There was a South African youngster who played at the under 19 Cricket World Cup.
Oh yeah,
and has now played for the junior box.
Yeah. He captaining the junior box. Yeah,
that is wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yes,
what's his name? He's a good. He's a good fast bowler. And then I see we beat Argentina, our under 20s, at the rugby championships. The first game, bit of a to and fro affair.
Yeah, we had to.
Yeah,
but our sevens women's team lost to China.
Yeah, but you know the People's Republic.
People's Republic.
You know they big rugby, big women's 7 country. That
a lot of people to pick from.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just end it off with the prediction for next week. You're going to go with Northampton Saints purely based on passion?
I mean, I'm not gonna say that Northampton Saints are going to win. I would prefer them to win.
Okay.
I have a weird dislike for Damien Penaud. I think I don't like him.
Yeah. And there's something about him that
there's something about him that I don't like.
He's an outstanding rugby player.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter.
Don't care about that.
Can't say I'm a big fan of any French rugby players, to be honest.
I think Louis Biret is quite cool.
Yeah,
I think he's pretty sick.
Yeah, there's a few of them that I don't mind, but
I liked Sebastian
especially
Chabal.
the ones that come from South Africa.
The caveman.
Did you hear that Sebastian Chabal came out recently and said that he remembers none of the last 5 years of his rugby career because he was concussed so much.
Really?
He says he doesn't remember playing the Springboks in the World Cup in 2007.
That's because
he says
he didn't.
He did.
France didn't play South Africa
in the finals.
England played South Africa in the finals.
Didn't we beat them in the semis?
No.
It was in Paris. I think that's
Well,
why
that's why he didn't. But I think what I wanted to say is he doesn't remember playing that World Cup.
Wait, who did we play in the semis? No, we played Argentina in the semis.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
What I think I wanted to say is that he said that he doesn't remember that World Cup in 2007.
Guys, you know in the comments these oaks
No, they
take
must
us
come.
apart, man.
But I'm back now delivering facts here.
Anyway,
can't even decide who we played against.
anyway, back to predictions. Also, don't call us a rugby pod. We're not a rugby pod. We're just a pod.
We're diversifying.
We are three idiots with amateur analysis. Because for the integrity of the podcast, I hope that Bordeaux win. Because we've been talking up fucking French rugby for the last months.
I heard that.
He said how cuck English rugby is now. If they go and win, there goes all our theories. So come on, Bordeaux.
We really need to string together like a few. We need to be consistent in our messaging. We can't, on the one hand, be like French rugby is so good, and the next week we go, "Fucking come
Terrible.
on, Northampton."
Ireland are the greatest rugby nation in the world.
That's a great place to end it.
And on that note, have a good week. Cheers, guys.